How's it going, everybody? I'm Sam Lee, reading for writer Leonid Melikhov, and welcome to Gaming Instinct's review of Saints Row. Back in the glorious days of Xbox 360, I remember playing a game called Saints Row. For some people, it was considered a blatant copycat to the ever-popular franchise Grand Theft Auto, while to others, it was just another open-world crime game with its own style, humor, and twists. Saints Row was one of my favorite games back in that era. It took the whole gang rap culture with Street Wars and put it into a video game, and it was well executed. Saints Row was charming and different enough that I didn't consider it to be a competitor to GTA, but rather a title that stood on its own two legs and built its own audience. Fast forward many years and the franchise spawned multiple sequels that got worse and worse with each iteration, and now Volition decided to rebrand the series for the new generation veteran fans. I hate to say this, but the short answer is that this game is an insult not only to the original fan base, but to the whole gaming crowd, and here is why. Welcome to a review of Saints Row. Quick disclaimer, this product is being reviewed on the Xbox Series X. A review copy was provided by Deep Silver for the purposes of review. This video may contain minor plot spoilers. Gaming Instincts is an Amazon affiliate and does gain financial benefits if you choose to purchase this product on this page. As all of you know, gameplay is the most important aspect of any video game. We mentioned this in previous reviews and it won't be any different here. The gameplay in Saints Row is, simply put, awful, and barely has any redeeming qualities. First and foremost, let's talk about the storyline, characters, how everything is set up, and what to expect out of this so-called reboot. There are four main characters in Saints Row: yourself, Eli, Kevin, and Nina. They're college kids trying to make money by working with a variety of gangs such as the Idols, Los Panteros, and the Marshals. You start the game by creating your character who is the boss of your gang and doing some errands for the Marshals to prove yourself so you can make enough income to pay your rent. Saints Row doesn't have a default protagonist. Instead, the player has the freedom to create a boss they want for their gang using the fancy character creator. I will give credit where credit is due. Volition created an extensive character creator that gives a ton of freedom to the user on how they want their character to look. You can change every detail of the face with a bunch of sliders, have prosthetics for your arms or legs, and have goofy outfits and silly faces. There is so much detail that you can easily spend hours in the character creator alone. Additionally, throughout the game world, you can unlock a ton of clothing and get even crazier with your custom looks, and that's always a plus in my book. However, a good character creator doesn't mean the game is actually good itself, nor does it mean the gameplay is satisfying. For the most part, the three main characters of your gang are not terrible, but they're not great either. It's more of a subjective matter of whether you'll enjoy the cast or not. I am 50-50. Eli is your chill friend who likes to hang out and always has your back. Kevin is your shirtless buddy who randomly gets reminiscent of his former relationships with both men and women and provides quite the hilarious dialogue during gameplay missions. Nina is your hot college girl who's obsessed with her car and works with the Los Panteros to make quick cash on the side. The storyline is not super serious, and I don't think it's meant to be. Saints Row started as a semi-serious gang simulator, then later evolved into super goofy settings with superheroes and aliens that never took itself too seriously. The reboot is trying to get back to old school ways of being semi-serious while at the same time being funny and ridiculous. It is a blend of the two, but it doesn't have the wackiness of Saints Row 4. Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing is up to you, and it's completely subjective. If you're looking for a dark and gritty crime thriller though, look elsewhere. I treated the story like I was watching a comedic Saturday night sitcom. It has its ups and downs with both hilariously bad cringe writing and a few laughs here and there. If you enjoy this type of goofiness, then you'll be fine. If not, well, then oh well. Again, it's a subjective thing, but this is how the game was trying to portray itself. With the story stuff out of the way, it's time to take a deep dive into the gameplay and feel of the game. In essence, Saints Row is an open-world action game, and when it comes to games that require a variety of weapons, shooting and running from place to place, you should focus on getting the gunplay right and how your character interacts with the world and around them. First of all, the gunplay feels horrendous. It doesn't matter what weapon you use. You can be using a shotgun, a burst rifle, or a pistol, and the impacts of your bullets hitting your enemies feel like you're throwing noodles at them. The feedback is atrocious. There's just a huge disconnect between your gun's bullets and enemies. When you hit them in the head, you hear somewhat of a pop, cracking sound, but it's just not enough. Also, the hitbox is very strange at times, and it's a bit hard to tell if you're going to land a shot or not. Honestly, the only way I was able to tell my bullets are hitting something is if I can see their health bar depleting. In the year 2022, that is unacceptable. No player should be looking at the enemy's health bar at all times when they're shooting directly at them. If you want to see an example of fantastic shooting mechanics, take a look at Warframe, which came out in 2013 at the launch of PS4 and Xbox One. Fast forward to 2017 and Destiny 2 is simply a masterclass when it comes to amazing gunplay. While Saints Row doesn't have to be as good as either of those games regarding shooting mechanics, my point is, those titles came out many years ago and are still better than anything else on the market. It's worth mentioning that Warframe is a free-to-play title and has top-notch quality when it comes to gunplay. The problem is that the gunplay in Saints Row is simply bare bones and felt like it was rushed out. It does not feel good to shoot anything in this game, period. Do you know what else makes already bad gunplay even worse? Enemies that are basically all the same. The only variation is that each of the game has maybe one or two enemies that are somewhat unique compared to the others. For example, the Los Panteros have big buff dudes that carry miniguns. Meanwhile, the Idols have dancers that use their sticks to deflect bullets, and that's about it. At the end of the day, you're shooting the same things and it never feels fun. Enough talking negative about the gunplay, let's talk about something positive for once, and that's the AI. Saints Row surprisingly has quite the best AI I have ever experienced. Take a look at it yourself.
You're listening to Outrun, KFADR 101.1.
Passy Bland hired the second best.
That's the last of them.
You can't tell me that's not good AI, guys. Come on now. It's next generation power right here, fellas. Halo Combat Evolved from 2001 wishes it could be this good. Okay, alright, done with the obvious sarcasm part. Seriously, how does stuff like this get through Q&A and testing? How is this acceptable in today's day and age of video game development? I do not think anyone is asking for anything super fancy or something we've never experienced before when it comes to AI. Why is it so hard to fully develop a functioning AI that can execute on fundamentals and not be broken the majority of the time? We're not asking for crazy AI dynamics here or some sort of insane complex interactions. This is an action game, and action games need to have enemies that can go behind cover at least or lob grenades at you when you're in a cornered spot. These are basic things that you'd expect to see out of an action game, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. Also, yes, we have looked at the difficulty options. The review session was played through an entrepreneur difficulty, which is the default difficulty set up by the game and is considered the normal setting. Volition was kind enough to include a variety of difficulty sliders where you can customize the challenge to your liking. And I hate to inform you, but the sliders simply make the game more challenging by either increasing the enemy's HP and attack damage, frequency of how often you go against tougher enemies, the scarcity of ammo, less or more time on timed objectives, how hard the vehicle combat can be, how much more or less damage you can deal to the enemies, and how often you can raise your notoriety level. None of this adjusts the difficulty level. All it does is make the game more artificially difficult instead of making the AI smarter or more reactive. Increasing an AI's health or damage is the lamest slider anyone can come up with. It will simply make the game more tedious and annoying. There are some enemies already that are bullet sponges. Why would any player make the enemies take more hits? To waste time and brag that they beat the game with sliders set to max? I guess someone can do a speedrun or something with all the sliders up, but that's about it, and that's not your main target audience. My point is that artificial difficulty is simply not fun and doesn't achieve anything. I get that Volition tried to give players the options on how the game is tuned up when it comes to difficulty, but that doesn't make the already awful gunplay in the AI any better or worse. It's useless. Next, let's discuss the structure of the game. Your smartphone is how you start engaging with the world of Saints Row. There are a variety of apps on it, such as the one app that lets you hunt down big bounty targets for money. The missions app is how you'll progress through the main storyline. A mission list will come up and you can choose whatever is available. When completing missions, more of them will unlock. There are also challenges to complete that reward you with money and XP. The lifeless world of Santo Ileso, set in Las Vegas, Nevada, is filled with your standard run-of-the-mill secondary tasks and collectibles. The game is divided into regions, and each region has a specific amount of collectibles to find, such as dumpsters fitting for dumpster diving, threats to eliminate in the region, which are nothing more than basic shootouts with random gang members, photos to take with your phone of specific decorative objects, drug packages to collect, and so on. A collectathon with a bunch of boring side objectives that every open world has been doing for the last decade or so. Nothing new or unique here whatsoever. The real storyline missions are the only ones that can get somewhat interesting from time to time and break up the pacing. For example, there was one mission that was poking fun at LARPing, which stands for Real Life Action Roleplay. During this mission, your buddy Eli asks you for help and tells you to dress up in a suit to fit in with roleplay and speak a certain way. It was a super goofy and dumb mission, but at least it broke the pace and had some hilarious dialogue and was fun to do.
Halt! Who goes there?
'Tis I, Elijah the Wise, and... Quick, what's your character's name?
I don't know.
And... Bosonius the Bloody.
What business have thee here?
I wish to join with the Great Worm.
Huzzah! Thou hast seen reason and rejected the ways of the dust storm?
Sadly, these types of missions are not enough to save Saints Row from its awful core gameplay systems. With how obnoxiously bad the animations are, mixed in with the atrocious gunplay and a lack of variety of enemies, there's not much to enjoy here. It's a game that everyone has already played, and those games are likely in a better state. It will take you upwards of 30 to 50 hours to 100% the entire city if you are willing to torture yourself. But what about the multiplayer? There is no competitive or any kind of PvP multiplayer in the reboot of Saints Row. You can only play co-op with a friend. This is also another disappointment because the multiplayer modes in the original Saints Row, such as Protect the Pimp, were fun as hell. But it seems Volition believes they can get away with only focusing on the single player portion this time around. Well, they are completely wrong, and this is another slap to the face to the original fans. Also, we were not able to test out or play the co-op mode due to only having access to one review copy of the game. Now that we have the gameplay portion out of the way, I would like to discuss the performance of the game, the visual art style, and issues that come with it. Believe it or not, Volition decided to use the original engine from Saints Row 3 and give it a few upgrades. I am not sure why they chose to go down that path or why they thought it was a good idea. The Saints Row reboot looks like a AAA high-quality production value game made specifically for platforms such as iOS and Android. Yes, it looks that awful. It is a cross-gen game, but the new generation systems don't help it much either. The game has plenty of weird pop-in issues and shadows that appear out of thin air as you drive across a bridge at high speeds. The city also looks lifeless, the textures are super bland, and it feels like a game that came straight out of the PS3 360 era. Obviously, for those days, this would be considered somewhat decent visuals, but even then, we had better looking games from other third-party developers. The game also suffers from awful bloom effects and oversaturation when it comes to lighting. The obnoxious bloom is everywhere, and it gets bad on the eyes. The animations are hilarious, and by hilarious, I mean horrible, stiff, and unintentionally funny. After some research, it seems that Volition used some of the older animations from previous games. I have no idea why the developer took so many shortcuts when they could have waited a few more years, developed a new engine, and built the game from scratch to take advantage of the new generation systems. Not only are they hurting their reputation by taking shortcuts, but they also think the fan base won't care about receiving a piss-poor, rushed product. And while we're still on the subject of visuals, let's discuss the performances of Saints Row. When you boot up the game, you're offered a wide variety of graphical options that you can change later in the menus if you wish. The following graphical quality presets are 2160p UHD/4K, 1080p ultra quality 1080p max frame rate, and 1440p high quality and 1440p high frame rate. I'll give them some brownie points here because options are nice. At first, we tested out the 2160p/4K option. The game was running like a complete slog despite the visuals looking a tad crisper thanks to higher resolution. However, for a title with high-paced action and shooting, the 4K option made it unplayable. I am honestly not sure why it was even included in the first place. It's so badly optimized that it's not even worth having. Sure, options are nice, but not when they make the game barely playable. During the review session, we played the game on 1440p max frame rate and it felt a bit smoother and was playable. I will be honest, we have not tried the other graphical presets because I felt no real need to play it at a lower resolution. The game already looks horrible as it is, even at 1440p. There are so many visual draw distance issues that it just doesn't matter. And look, graphics are not the most important thing when it comes to video games, but there is a limit to how bad they can get. Sadly, in the case of Saints Row, it hit that limit and went into the not allowed territory by our standards, and that is unfortunate. A game that looks like a high-end mobile game shouldn't have any weird graphical issues or draw distance problems on new generation hardware. Also, please do not give me the "but it's an open world game" excuse. Technology has come far along at this point where you can make an open world game look good enough while maintaining a steady frame rate and keeping a crisp look. It won't look super jazzy or purely next gen, but it will run well and feel much better to play. The fact that a reboot is using an ancient engine, old reused animations, and has glaring visual issues on new generation platforms is, simply put, unacceptable, and points will be taken off for that. Volition, please, do better next time when it comes to the technical department. The next title, if there is even gonna be one, doesn't need to blow anyone's socks off. It just needs to look decent, run well, and avoid glaring visual annoyances. And with that said, let's move on to the audio. I think the only redeeming quality besides the character creator in Saints Row Reboot is its soundtrack. Both the original and licensed music that played on various radio stations is quite a treat. You can find metal, rap, hip-hop, 80s synthwave, and even country music. There is something for everyone here, and there are also a lot of old-school tracks. The voice acting is a hit and a miss. Some characters match with how they look, and others not so much. The voiceover choices for the main protagonist, however, are god-awful, and there is not enough variety of voices to choose from. The guns don't sound good, and that doesn't help the gunplay either. Again, the feedback in the gunplay is severely lacking, and good feedback normally consists of satisfying audio of the guns firing, the impact of the bullet itself when it hits something, and good animations, of which Saints Row has none. Thankfully, I did not find any weird audio issues such as clipping or loss of sound. All in all, if you enjoy a good soundtrack, I think you'll be happy with what the game has to offer. If you're looking for stellar voice acting and fantastic sound design, then you need to look elsewhere. Dear fans of Saints Row, the reality is that Volition does not care for you anymore, so please, stay away from this product as far as possible and do not reward lazy and poor quality work. Otherwise, we will keep getting hot garbage like this that fills up your precious Xbox Series X or PS5's SSD space. There are plenty of games on both Game Pass and PS Plus that will give you far better value, gameplay, and most importantly, entertainment than this piece of hot, boring trash. I wanted to enjoy the reboot of Saints Row. The technology has changed a ton and for the better, I would say. But apparently Volition has decided to dig themselves into a grave and not invest in a new or better engine for their reboot. They've decided to reuse ancient animations and update their original Saints Row 3 and 4 engine just enough so they can get away with spending as little money as possible. By introducing a whole new cast of characters, completely changing what Saints Row used to be known for, and going in a direction that very few people will be able to stomach, they've taken the lazy route in hopes the gamers and their fans will eat it up. To top it all off, outdated gameplay systems and bad shooting mechanics make this whole package even worse than already is. Oh, and don't get me even started on the pathetic performance and visual bugs on next-gen platforms. Honestly, if you didn't tell me this game was called Saints Row, I would assume it is a high-quality production game made strictly for mobile platforms because of how awful and outdated it looks and plays. Gaming Instincts will be giving Saints Row a final verdict score of 5 out of 10. And this concludes Gaming Instincts' review of Saints Row. If you want to see more reviews, videos, and content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. This has been Sam Lee, and until next time.